আমরা শেখ মুজিবের সাথে রাত 1টায় দেখা করি তার বাসায়, এবং তাকে পরিষ্কার বলে আসি যে আপনি পাকিস্তানের রাষ্ট্রপ্রধান বা প্রধানমন্ত্রী হন, এটা আমরা চাই না, এবং আপনি চাইলেও কোনো রকম এটা হবে না। আপনার মৃত লাশের উপরেই আপনার আওয়ামী লীগের লোকেরা বিশ্বাসঘাতকতা করে পাকিস্তানিদের সাথে আঘাত করবে। অতএব আপনাকে স্বাধীন বাংলার রাষ্ট্রপ্রধান বা প্রধানমন্ত্রী হতে হবে। আপনি ইয়াহিয়ার সাথে যাই পূর্বে আলাপ করে থাকুন, তার সাথে দেখা করে বলুন যে যুব সমাজ, ছাত্র সমাজ, বাঙালিরা এটা মানবে না, অতএব আমার পক্ষে এটা করা সম্ভব নয়। তাই 24শে মার্চ অনির্ধারিতভাবে মুজিব ইয়াহিয়ার সাথে দেখা করে, এবং তিনি যখন গণভবনে যান দেখা করতে, তখন আমি তার গাড়িতে স্বাধীন বাংলার পতাকাটা জোর করে লাগিয়ে দেই, যদিও ওনার ইচ্ছার বিরুদ্ধে। এবং সেদিন তিনি সর্বশেষ বলে আসেন যে পশ্চিম পাকিস্তান থেকে বাঙালি যে সেনাবাহিনী আছে তাদের বাংলাদেশে পাঠিয়ে দিতে হবে, 2টা কারেন্সি করতে হবে, আলাদা স্টেট ব্যাংক করতে হবে, এমন কিছু দাবি উনি উত্থাপন করেন যেগুলি করলে আসলে পাকিস্তান এক পাকিস্তান থাকে না।
At that time, the situation in East Pakistan was that it was completely being run by Awami League. Yahya was staying, so to say, de facto guest of Bangladesh government. You cannot let a country run like that. He was tolerating it so that there is an understanding which will be reached between him and Mujib, and the events will take their normal course. The peace will return to it. Once agreement was not there, there was no option. He had to restore authority of the government.
Nixon and Kissinger had a great deal of sympathy for Yahya Khan because he was the first Pakistani leader to hold free elections, and therefore they felt that Sheikh Mujib should meet him at least halfway. Moreover, I don't think that they expected him to resort to a campaign of terror in East Pakistan. I think they expected that he would take sharp, quick military action, and that would be sufficient, as had been in the past, to put down riots in East Pakistan.
The first target was the Dhaka University students' hostels, because again students had been in the militant vanguard. Students, fortunately, most of them by then had scattered. Teachers, unfortunately, had not been so quick to move. They started to go into teachers' houses, pulling out teachers, lining them up and shooting them down.
I in no way want to justify the military action, the way it was undertaken, but I just want to highlight the psychological atmosphere, the psychological environment in which that action was planned. There was a very strong contingent of East Pakistan Rifles, police, and armed students, and they were in fairly substantial numbers and well armed. Compared to that, army units, they were not as big as they are made out to be. And they were operating from one basic assumption that in case they fail, they will all be killed to a man.
And then the tanks sought vengeance on the people, because all these densely populated localities where poor people live, they use fire throwers. They just put them to the torch. We saw the whole sky was red, aflame, and you could hear this heavy shelling and mortar, and the whole city seemed to be as if, there was a declaration of war.
The United States did not feel that it could do much to stop Yahya Khan from trying to suppress the uprising in East Pakistan, because its aid program was small, and Yahya was trying to prevent the dissolution of his country, something no leader willingly presides over. Once the army went into action, Yahya and his associates were really trapped. They had committed themselves to this course of action, and only superior military force would be likely to have prevented them from continuing it. I think when we speak about the position of the U.S. government, we have to recognize what we're really speaking about is the policy of Richard Nixon and Henry Kissinger, because they were controlling U.S. policy at the time. There was a lot of criticism of the policy in the United States press, in the United States Congress, and even within the executive department. One reason for Kissinger-Nixon policy on this issue became known in the middle of July, when it was announced that Pakistan had facilitated Kissinger's secret trip to China. knowledgeable observers probably recognized that Pakistan had done more than provide an airplane and a takeoff point, that they had probed Chinese intentions, conveyed messages back and forth. And so Nixon and Kissinger felt some obligation to Yahya Khan for his role in helping the American rapprochement toward China come into being. Mrs. Gandhi later stated that the Indo-Soviet treaty that was signed in the summer of 1971 had been under negotiation for over a year, although its final form may have reflected Indian perceptions that a U.S., Chinese, Pakistani axis was taking place. It may have also been due to Mrs. Gandhi's belief that even with Indian assistance, the guerrillas in East Pakistan would not be able to win out over the army, and that therefore India had to prepare for military action because it could not hope to absorb the millions of Hindu refugees that were being driven out of East Pakistan.
Well, the surrender of the Pakistan forces on the 16th of December was a great victory of the people against military power. And the thing that for 24 years had been the dominant motif, you might say, of national life in Pakistan, the military against the people. This was a decisive victory, or we had thought was a decisive victory, of people's power against the military.
Mujibur Rahman, who was a friend of mine, a great friend. Of course, he had little education, and none of us had the experience of conducting the affairs of an independent state. You must remember this point. None of us had the experience of conducting the affairs of an independent state, because for the first time we became independent with all these problems.
আমরা যখন সেখানে ছিলাম তখন তারা যাই গেলে এই শহরে নতুন শহর দেখছে শহরে গেলে তোমরা জমিন পাইবা এই হিসাবে মা বোন বৌজি ছেলেবেলে নিয়ে আইলাম আবার পরে ধরেন অনেক কষ্ট ক্লাস করছি করবার পরে হচ্ছে ধরেন কিছু জমিনে শ্বাস করতেছি ধান হইতেছে ধান হইবার পরিপক্ষে তারা হিসি নদী খা যখন ধানের সিজন আসে তারা হিসি দি খা ধান অর্ধেক ভাগ করে দাও আমরা এই সময় ঘোষণা করে নতুন শহরে যাই ধান শ্বাস করবা তোমরা ধান হইবে এখন আমরা কি করি না দিতে হবে নদিলে তো আসারও থাকতে দিব না
Physical force was not the only means used to steal from the poor.
আগে গ্রামে বড় বড় লোকের কাছ থেকে টাকা আনতাম লোন সুদ হিসাবে সুদ দেওয়া স্যার সুদ ওই সুদ কাটতাছি না বছরে আসল দাম কি দিয়ে আসল রয়ে গেছে পরের বছরও সুদ ওই নিচ্ছে এইভাবে মানুষ অনেক কিছু ইয়াত হয়ে গেছে লুজার হয়ে গেছে বড়দের সুদ দিয়ে
With the War of Liberation came back with full of enthusiasm to this country after finishing my degree and participating in the War of Liberation preparations and publicity in the United States. So we thought we'll build the whole country anew. It's a great country that we were to build ourselves. So joined Chittagong University, and the years passed by. We saw how the situation slipped through the control of the administration. So just walked out of the campus and started talking to people, particularly poor people. And there I came across a woman who worked for the whole day making bamboo stool. And for that work, she earned only 50 paisa, 1/2 of a taka. I couldn't believe that one can work for the whole day and earn such a small money. The reason she was making 50 paisa was she didn't have enough money to buy the bamboo and the cane she needed to make the bamboo stool. So the trader advanced her this little money, and the trader paid the price what he wanted. So I wanted to find out how many other people did that. So I came up with a list of 42 such people in the whole village. And the total amount they needed, all 42 of them, was hardly $30. So I was ashamed of myself being part of a society which could not provide $30 to 42 able-bodied, skillful people.
After liberation, my father wanted to fulfill his dream. And that was the main thing for the economic emancipation of the poor people of Bangladesh. And we had our 4 principles, that is nationalism, democracy, socialism, and secularism. And it was his commitment to the people, and he wanted to fulfill that.
The basic questions of the ownership of land, of other assets,
and also of decentralization of political control were not taken into consideration. And therefore, I would say, even after 2-3 years, from that day on, the difficulties with establishment of socialism in this country started.
In fact, we seem to be having a society which was headed by a criminal organization. You know, briefly, I'd say, like, for example, if mafia was running America.
He has allowed everyone to become corrupt. And he did not take any action against anybody, any of his party members, who has done such a crime which is inhuman and intolerable by anybody.
Sheikh Mujibur Rahman could not deal with the political movement in a democratic way. He felt jittery about the whole situation. He was virtually controlling the public, but he could not face the criticism, accept the opposition.
তখন তিনি তার বিরুদ্ধে রক্ষী বাহিনী গড়ে তুললেন। তার তো রেগুলার ফোর্সের বিরুদ্ধে আরেকটা রেগুলার ফোর্স, প্যারালাল আর্মি, যাতে করে এই আর্মিকে তিনি মার্সিনারি আর্মি হিসেবে ব্যবহার করে আর রক্ষী বাহিনীকে দিয়ে উনি উনার রাষ্ট্র ক্ষমতা টিকিয়ে রাখা দলের শাসন কায়েম করার চেষ্টা করলেন।
He decided to crush the movement by state apparatus and physical force. So Rakhi Bahini was launched. The Awami League cadres were armed, and the opposition political movement were harassed, offices burned down, arrested, killed.
But it's one thing to hear, another thing to be ordered personally, you know, that you have to eliminate. If you left Pakistan Army because of that, because you're not prepared to obey such orders, I don't see why I should obey orders of any Bangladeshi. It doesn't make any difference whether he's a Bangladeshi or a Pakistani or anybody tells me to eliminate a citizen. There is supposed to be a rule of law, a rule of justice.
74 had been a particularly difficult year. That was the year we had a terrible famine, and one which again was very unscrupulously exploited from outside as part of Kissinger's food diplomacy, where the food shipments which were due in August, September, to ward off the famine which we saw coming. We saw it coming because in July there were very sudden floods which had destroyed over 1 million tons of food.
There was a scare that the crop would fail in that year, and the newspapers reported that. And the traders and others who had food grain, they didn't release it, they hoarded it. And an artificial situation, because of that scare, was created. Another factor contributed, and that was the US aid food supply that was coming to Bangladesh in response to Bangladesh not accepting their demand about not selling jute sacks to Cuba. They diverted that sheep, and prices became so high in 1974 when the government came out saying that there was no shortage of food. That was not believed by the traders and others who had food grain, and they kept on hoarding the food that they had, and we had this famine. This was artificially created in a way.
দুর্ভিক্ষে আপনারা দেখবেন লক্ষ লক্ষ লোক মারা যায় বাংলাদেশে না খেয়ে। সমগ্র বিশ্ব থেকে বাংলাদেশকে বটমলেস বাস্কেট হিসাবে আখ্যায়িত করা হয়।
And the army, conventional army, which are headed by the freedom fighting military officers, but they were trained and groomed in the Pakistani army. So this conventional army, who in the Ayub regime dominated Pakistan politics, so they felt an urge to dominate the Bangladesh politics also. And from then on, the army also conspired to overthrow Sheikh Mujibur Rahman and take the power of state power.
এবং মুজিব ক্ষমতায় টিকে থাকার জন্য হাজার হাজার রাজনৈতিক কর্মীকে হত্যা করে। জাসদের 10,000 কর্মীকে জেলে রাখে, মোশাররফ হোসেনকে হত্যা করে, সিরাজ শিকদারকে হত্যা করে। এই ধরনের রাজনৈতিক হত্যার মধ্য দিয়ে ফ্যাসিবাদী কায়দায় খবর কাগজ বন্ধ করে দিয়ে, কণ্ঠরোধ করে দিয়ে মৌলিক অধিকার, ফ্রিডম, মানুষের সিভিল রাইট এবং মানুষের ফান্ডামেন্টাল রাইটস এগুলি কাঠিল করে দিয়ে মুজিব ক্ষমতা থাকার চেষ্টা করে।
So in 1974, the situation was very volatile. There was massive strikes, the economy crumbled, the bureaucracy failed. So Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, to save the situation, went officially for emergency.
Mujib Sahab went for Bakshal, which means one leader, one party, one country. Total disregard and betrayal of people's confidence, hope and expectation, and total negation of the constitution which we ourselves framed. That is Bakshal. Stopping newspapers, all newspapers excepting 3-4 under the government control. According to my reading, though cruel it will sound, Mujib's political death was on that day on which he formed this one-party Bakshal.
By 1975, Mujib had become increasingly unpopular in Bangladesh itself, and it seemed to be less a question as to whether or not he would be overthrown than who would overthrow him. Since most of the reports indicated that a group most likely to come out on top was basically a conservative right-wing group rather than a Marxist pro-Soviet group, the United States had relatively little concern about the developments there at the time.
The first obvious choice was General Zia, because at least he was not tarnished. So after a lot of arrangements, I managed to see him on 20th of March 1975 in the evening. General Zia said, "I am a senior officer, I cannot be involved in such things. If you, the junior officers, want to do it, go ahead."
My father was so popular, and people had their faith on my father. So for 3.5 years, they try to work against him, they try to take the people against him, they couldn't succeed. And at last, they conspired with some of the party member. So those people, especially Khandokar Mustaq and his group, they betrayed my father.
I thought for almost more than a year, trying to figure out alternate ways of how to do it without killing at all. To the last, I couldn't figure out any way, because the problem was there were so few people, and so the people were so frightened, and the chances of any failure was so horrifying that I had no alternative left except to go for the ultimate level.
I remember when these people came to shoot him, he was coming down the stairs, and he said, "If you think the people of this country will be happy by killing me, go ahead." And the first person, in fact, couldn't shoot. I mean, you know, he literally did what Sheikh Mujib had expected, his hands trembled. So there was a contingency group outside who just ran in and shot him down.